This is Capitalize Your Finances, the show representing you, a select group of excited, ready, and fired up listeners seeking to potentially maximize your money moves and get after it. We don't settle for generic advice of always and nevers. Our currency is our intellect, and we constantly seek the logical way of likely creating advantages to potentially maximize wealth for our personal and unique situations. This show brings you this step-by-step framework to capitalize your finances in the aspects of your financial situation, and we strive to explore strategies and ideas to potentially help you capitalize on your financial decisions. We are capitalizers, and this is our show.
Welcome back to Capitalize Your Finances. As always, I am your host, Christopher A. Panayoti, the Cap in Capitalize, and today we have an extremely special guest. He is a two-time author. We're going to be talking about his most recent book, Do It Selling. He is also an award-winning sales consultant, the one, the only David Newman. Welcome to Capitalize Your Finances.
Chris, it is literally great to be here, and I say that 100 times on 100 different shows, but literally, I am here, dude. I am physically here in 3D space with you.
Yes.
And there is nowhere else I would rather be.
Yes, 4D, actually.
4D.
Yeah, 4D.
Yeah. 4K,
right?
4D.
Yes.
All the letters.
Yes, and again, all of them. So this is your first time in a studio, correct?
It's the first time doing a podcast. Well, it's actually the second time
Okay.
that I've done a podcast in person.
Okay. So when was the first time? I mean, we're okay giving other people
I went,
shout-outs.
so my buddy Chris Carr, who runs a digital marketing agency in Philadelphia.
Okay.
It was April of 2020. So the
Oh.
pandemic had just hit. He's like, I know this is weird, but, if you're not comfortable coming in, don't come in. But would you want to come in? His entire office building was totally abandoned, totally empty.
Yeah.
He was the only guy in the office. He had a big table, probably twice the size of this. So we had like the 6-foot
Yes.
social distancing, and he had his engineer there, and we did it in a totally empty office.
Awesome.
It turned out great, but it was a weird way
Oh, yeah.
to do my first in-person podcast.
Yes.
So this is my second in-person podcast post-pandemic. Knock on all the wood.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you've only done in-person podcasts with people named Chris.
That is also true.
That is
also true.
Yeah. So if the next one is Chris, then you've got a very niche in-person following that you go for.
It's got to be tight. We got to keep it tight.
Yeah. And it's got to be spelt the right way. If it's Chris with a K, not interested.
No, this guy also CHRIS.
Okay,
the right way we call it.
Yeah, he sounds like a winner. Well,
Yeah.
I have so much that I want to get into today. But before we dive into the book, Do It Selling, I first want to give our capitalizers, I want them to know the brief background, of you and what led you into the sales consulting business. Because a lot of people, and I'll just be frank, when they introduce themselves to me and they say that I'm a whatever consultant, sales consultant, XYZ, I kind of go, all right, like you're kind of useless. But I remember when I met you and I saw your website, you've got a chief financial officer operating, like you run a great ship. So how did you get into sales consulting, true sales consulting in the first place?
So I came out of a 10-year corporate consulting career, meaning consulting for big consulting firms.
Okay.
And being sent out to various Fortune 500 clients and so on. And after 10 years of that, I figured, I know how to consult, I know how to coach, I know how to train, I know how to lead a seminar. Why don't I go do this on my own? And how hard can it be?
Right.
Was the entrepreneurial thinking. Well, I found out how hard it can be because when you're on your own, it's about getting the work. It's not about doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I struggled mightily for a good 2 or 3 years trying to get my sea legs around this whole entrepreneurial, how do I be an independent consultant? Mm-hmm. And then one of my friends and mentors, Sam Silverstein, who's an accountability expert, I heard him speak, and he dropped this amazing quote, which I think for your folks listening will also be a huge eye-opener. Are you willing to do what you have to do so you get to do what you want to do? And I'm going to lay that on you again. I'm going to lay it on you again. It's so good. So good.
Just make sure you're talking to the mic, though, because then no one will be able to
Are
hear
you
it.
willing to do what you have to do so that you get to do what you want to do? So all of us love the work that we're doing, typically. It's like, oh, can someone else do the marketing part? Can someone else do the sales part? That's like yucky.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that. Like, they hold it up like a dead fish. Like, oh, here's the sales part. I don't like the sales part. The sales, can someone just take this away and let me have the fun part?
Yeah.
Let me be on the podcasts. Let me work with my clients. Let me do my zone of genius. And it's like the selling part's like the dirty, filthy, nasty. Bleh. So I realized I was in a situation where I guess many entrepreneurs, it's either scratch your own itch, or you are your best client is you 10 years ago, right? Before you learned all the things that you learned through the School of Hard Knocks and all the mentors and all the education and all the things that you've been through. So that was me. It's like, why am I such a train wreck at marketing and sales? And I better master it. I better learn it. I better absorb it. And I did. It took about like 4 or 5 more years until I really figured some things out. And then around 2008, 2009, when this still wasn't my primary business model, because I was still doing consulting for Fortune 500 companies, but other consultants would come up to me and go, David, how'd you get PNC Bank as a client? How'd you get Merrill Lynch? How'd you get American Express? How'd you get Microsoft and QVC and IBM? And I was like, well, I just did what I had to do. No, tell me, like, what do you say and how do you get the first meeting and what questions did you ask and show me your proposal. And so I was getting asked all these can I pick your brain questions, and can I pick your brain breakfast and lunch and drinks and everything. So I was doing a lot of these pick your brain sessions because there were good people. They were asking good questions. It was fun for me to tell my little war stories. And then one day, a career consultant friend of mine, who's still a friend to this day, he stops me mid-sentence. We're having breakfast somewhere. And he says, you should do this for a living. And I said, I should do what for a living? Eat bacon and eggs? He said, no, not eat bacon and eggs. You should teach other people what you're telling me about how to get clients, marketing, sales conversations, etc. And I laughed at him. I said, no. First of all, independent consultants and coaches and trainers, they're all broke. That's not a real business. That's not going to work. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm going back to my Fortune 500 clients. And he says to me, listen, if I get a bunch of people together, like just 3 or 4 other consultants, will you do like just some quick sessions with us? And I said, okay, fine. Listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to meet on Tuesday mornings. We're going to do it for 4 weeks, and I'm going to have to charge you because we're doing bagels and coffee and juice. I'm going to charge you all $50. And he says, $50 a week? I'm like, no, $50 for the whole thing. So each of you 4 or 5 people are going to pay me $50 and we'll do this thing. So I did that. In the middle of that 4 weeks, when I was having my little breakfast club, literally in my living room, I was also doing a program for a local insurance brokerage firm. They paid me $10,000 to come in and do a series of 3 workshops for them. And the first of these 3 workshops was right in the middle of this breakfast club time. So I walk in to their office, and they have a big meeting room, and all these people are sitting there like this, arms crossed, grimacy faces. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this training session. My boss made me come. This sucks.
And this is your living room.
No. This is the 20 people at the insurance brokerage firm.
Okay, got it.
There's a contrast happening here.
Yes.
Contrast. So I walk in there with these sour faces, these 20 insurance brokerage people. I'm thinking back to my living room with the 4 or 5 consultants who are hanging on my every word. They're like, oh my God, this is so good. This is so valuable. Pass me a bagel. I paid $50 to be here. And I'm like, as soon as I had that blinding flash of the obvious in the middle of that seminar room at the insurance brokerage firm, I realized I'm in the wrong room teaching the wrong thing to the wrong people for the wrong reason. And literally that day, I started to change my business to dial back the corporate work and start dialing up the work that I'm doing today, which is the marketing and the sales, consulting, and advisory services for solo consultants and consulting firms.
Awesome. And that was 2008. So, I mean, you've been doing this for a little while
Yes.
now. Well, so when we first got to know each other, your story of how you left corporate, I know you gave us just a little teaser of it, to build your business. I mean, it was incredibly inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And it was intriguing. And I wanted to take our listeners through the 2010s, because you brought us up to 2008 when you made that transition. And you went from a solo guy to a 7-figure enterprise. So, I want to put my planning hat on and business hat on for a second. And investing, I've got to ask, when you were building in the 2010s, were you running numbers to calculate break even on new staff? Or was this expansion purely hire because we're drowning in opportunity and we'll figure it out?
Sure. So the timeline was I started scaling my one-person business first. So 2009, 2010, I would say through about 2012, I was doing two things. I was doing one-on-one coaching with consultants and consulting firms. And I started doing some group live-led, 10-week classes. Today, if they were recorded, we'd call them an online course. But I wasn't recording them. They were live-led with an actual start date. Cohort comes together, worked for 10 weeks, 12 weeks. Cohort ends, time to fill the next one. So then my first online course I did that in 2013. And it's funny, Chris, because I was so used to this live-led cohort model that we had a marketing time period and then, 10 weeks to deliver. So this is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3, this is week 4. When I first finished my first online course, I did the same thing as marketing and launch and pre-launch and cart close and all of this. And then week 1, week 2, and then I stopped myself. I said, wait a minute. There is no week 1. There is no week 2. It's evergreen. They can go through it at their own pace. I don't have to be sitting in front of Zoom anymore. It's I just sell it and they're going through the course. And this was a big aha light bulb for me. Build it once, sell it many, many times. So 2013, 2014 was my era of online courses. We hit, so at that point we're making it's still me, no VA, no nothing, totally solo till about 2015. 2015, a good friend of mine, Alyssa Rushton, we're doing this JV thing. I'm promoting her, she's promoting me. And she's like, well, I'll send over the web copy and the emails. Who should I send it to? And I didn't understand her question. I'm like, Alyssa, what are you talking about? Who do you send? You send it to me. She goes, no, I mean, who's your person? Who sets all this up for you? I say, I set it up. And she looks at me like I got 3 heads. We're on a Zoom call. She's like, you don't have a VA? I said, no. She said, how much money you make last year? I said, $500,000. She says, you have a $500,000 business, and you're the one setting up the web pages, and you're the one setting up the landing pages, and you're the one setting up the GoToWebinar account and connecting the plumbing. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, oh, no. I'm introducing you to my VA because she has some room on her calendar. You need to hire this person and get yourself out of the weeds of your business. And this is crazy. So there's no way that a $500,000 a year person should be setting up their own, and I didn't know any better. I'm like, solo business means solo business. I'm by myself. It's great. And so my first hire was 2015. Her name is Sam. She's started out as my VA. She's now our operations manager. She's been here the whole time.
And that's 7 years in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then in 2015, 2016, 500K, 500K, 2017, this is a funny story. 2017, because it ends in a 7, my business was literally stagnating at 500K per year. And so I made a commitment to myself, like a New Year's resolution, 7 figures in 17, because of course 2017 ends in 7. So I'm like, okay. So we got to hit 7 figures in 2017. And there's a very interesting energetic flow around money and revenue. Mm-hmm. And I learned this because at that point I had hired Teresa on our team, who's now our director of training. She came on initially as sales, and then she also said, by the way, I also do training and coaching. If you want to use me that way, I'm happy to do that. And so then she was doing that as well. So now it's me, Teresa, and Sam, 3 of us are in the business, and we're doing the sprint to 7 figures. And it's around October, and my CPA, we're doing our quarterly numbers, and so he has we're 3/4 of the way through the year, and I guess we're at 800K by early October, and he says, hey, you're on a great runway here. It looks like you'll hit $1 million. And of course, I'm very excited to hear that. And So I had this insane idea. You know how like in the fundraising world, like when a hospital has a big fundraiser or nonprofit, they build that big thermometer. Yep. And then they start to fill the thermometer. So I was like, let's have an online $1 million thermometer. So we're at 800,000 in October, and we build the thermometer, and now everything is focused on got to hit 7 figures, got to hit 7 figures, got to hit 7 figures. October, we sold nothing. Did I mention there's the energetic flow around money and why you're making the money and what your goals and intentions are with the money?
It's not
so
great.
I'm like, oh my God, what the heck happened? PG-13 kids. What the heck happened? And I was like, okay. I said, folks, we have a problem. We're focused on the wrong thing. This is now November 1st, right? We have 8 weeks.
Yep.
It's November 1st. We made no money in the last 30 days. We're still at 800K. We have to make $200,000 in the next 8 weeks. And the way that we're going to do that is we are not going to focus at all on the $200,000 or the 8 weeks or the 7 figures, and we're going to tear up the thermometer. And at this point, Teresa and Sam are looking at me like, so they come up, is anti-goal setting, unsetting the goal? I'm like, no, the goal is there, but at that point, our program costs $10,000. And I said, this is not about getting $200,000 in the bank. This is about finding 20 amazing, fantastic clients that we know we can help, that we can see their bigger, better, bolder future working with us, that we are going to transform their businesses, we're going to transform their lives, we're going to be loving on these people, the business equivalent of hugging them, kissing them, and taking them on this amazing vacation called the rest of their professional career. And we're not going to worry about the money. We can end the year right now at 800K, and it will have been a great year, and I don't care. And now that's great to say that, but all 3 of us really had to feel that. Mm-hmm. So November, we get 13 new clients. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
About the energetic forces behind money and finances and everything. So 13 new clients. December, we have 7 clients to go. And again, it's not about the money. We're not doing the math. It's got to find 7 more awesome clients to sign up for our 10K program. And I start questioning the universe. And I was like, then maybe this will work, maybe this won't work, but I still have this goal kind of gnawing at me. So what can I do? And I said, okay, I've stopped working with clients one-on-one. So our group program at that point was 12 weeks, 10K. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to put an email out to my list, and I'm going to say, guys, I'm taking on 4 one-on-one clients. It's $15K. Here's the application form. 4 people sign up for the $15K program. So it's $60,000 of new revenue. December, we get our 7 clients. I'm like, it's literally down to the wire. So first week of January, the dust settles. We're doing the math. How much top-line revenue did the company make? $1,061,000.
Awesome.
Now, what you have to do there is I had little faith, so I offered the $15K, 4 people, right? Let's back out the $60,000. It is now, even if I hadn't done that, $1,001,000.
Yes.
$1,001,000. But I wanted to make sure, right? I wanted to kind of just have a little safety buffer. So that year ended up at literally $1,061,000. The $60K was, it wasn't necessary because the universe took care of our good intentions. But so that was the path to 7 figures. And then since then, we're now closer to 2 million. But, I never forgot that lesson, though. That lesson about you can go for the money, you can be quote unquote money motivated, and that has an amazing way of stopping the money. It has an amazing way of just cutting out your legs from under you and the universe saying, dude, you're doing this for the wrong reason, wrong motivation, wrong mindset, wrong goal, right? What is behind that money for us? It was finding 20 amazing consultants or consulting firms that we knew we could help. And man, the universe really does smack you upside the head sometimes with these lessons, sometimes pretty hard.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that actually makes me think, because we've been fortunate enough to interview some amazing investors. They hate calling themselves super investors, but like world famous investors that have done very well, managed billions of dollars. And it's interesting because let's not be around the bush. Most people would in some cases kill to have their worth in their financial success. But once you get there, that mentality that they have, it's totally different. And I've always been fascinated by that. And by no means are my wife and I like a billionaire or even close to it. But we've turned that corner, and we're very fortunate that the good Lord has blessed us with that. And now that we've turned that corner, you start to see what's really important in life. And whether it's the money chasing or the business chasing, very similar to you want to work with people that you love and enjoy. And so for listeners, if whether you're listening in or you're watching, make sure if you run a business or you're a sales consultant or an executive or even an everyday employee just bringing in business, you only want to work with people that you genuinely want to be around, even if there wasn't a dollar attached to it. Now, I want to take a step back because I want to look back at a couple things. What would you say were some of the greatest mistakes that you've made and learned from? But then also let's end on a high note. And what were some of the greatest successes?
Sure. I think some of the mistakes, I definitely said yes to the wrong clients. So now one of the mantras among many others that you'll find in the Do It Selling book is don't worry about the right clients saying no. Worry about the wrong clients saying yes. So when, again, there's a credit card on the end of this call, there's a check on the end of this Zoom line here, this might not be an ideal client. They kind of seem like a little bit of a jerk. They kind of seem high maintenance. They kind of seem high drama. They kind of seem really demanding, a little disrespectful. I'm sure this will get better once they pay me a boatload of money. No. If the dating doesn't go well, the marriage will not improve. So I don't know how many times I had to learn that lesson, but bringing on nightmare clients just for the paycheck, huge mistake. I think I know you talk about this, Chris, in your book and with your clients. There's also a huge difference for an entrepreneur between top-line revenue and take-home profit.
Yeah.
So there is this curve that most entrepreneurs are on if you're lucky to hit 7 figures or 8 figures in your business. But there's some inflection point. For some people, it's at 1 million. For others, it's at 3 million. Others, it might be at 10 million. It's like the ones and the threes, right? 1 million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million. These are inflection points where the business is sort of at risk of revenue goes up, personal income goes down. Because you're overexpanding, you're expanding too fast, you're hiring too much, you're reinvesting in the business for the wrong reasons, or just some of those investments don't work out the way that they should, or whatever it is. So another mistake is being sort of hypnotized by this kind of, what's a good term, like bro scalers. You know, it's like all these guys that you see all the ads online.
Yes.
You know, and some of them have like huge biceps and tattoos everywhere, and nothing wrong with that. But the bro scalers are the ones that just like, yeah, scale, man, scale.
Yeah.
And 5 million's better than 2 million, and 10 million's better than 4 million, and 50 million's better than 10 million. And at some point, I think you have to ask yourself, with your lifestyle, with your family, with your loved ones, with things that are important to you, how much is enough? How big is big enough? And are you working on work-life balance, or is it life-work balance? Meaning, design your life first and then design your business choices around the kind of life that you want. And I know, Chris, you have a young family. How much time do I want to spend with my beautiful wife, my beautiful child? How much time do I want to spend on vacation? How much downtime do I want? How much stress do I want? A lot of people say, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm working all the time. I'm living on energy drinks. I'm sleeping 3 hours a night. No one admits that that's a choice. That is literally a choice in the way that you're running your business, and you're prioritizing your life, and you're prioritizing your family. So I think another mistake is kind of buying into that bro scaling.
Yeah.
And so I would say those are the top 2 or 3.
Yeah. Bro scaling.
Bro scaling.
We gotta use that in
TM.
one of our reels.
Bro
for
scaling.
Sure.
TM.
Well, and it's fascinating you say, you mentioned what you did with the business side. One of the things that I've noticed is, and look, we're in a unique business in financial planning just because of the ability to scale and compound and all of that. And one of the things I've learned over the years for myself, and I've brought that on to clients, is there's a concept, I read about it years ago, called wealth beta. And I haven't really brought it up until this moment. And the whole concept is for business owners or entrepreneurs, if you look at your business and it has a bad year, what is the statistical probability that financially you're going to pull back as well? And so what I've told a lot of people is, there's a term out there called the S&P 500 or the SME 500. And the SME 500 is investing in me before investments and all of that. And I don't think it's an either or. I think it's an and. If you want to get really technical, one of the things that I've seen even with our businesses, if we take distributions and invest alongside clients, which I think is the right thing to do, eventually, not only do those investments do well for your clients, they do well for you. And so, in theory, one that was running that business could then live off of that income, the investment income, capital gains, tax brackets lower. And you get this with research and development and expenses of business. You could essentially run that thing on red. And even though, right, your take home might not be as much, if you've got enough money to live off of your investment income, unless you just totally overblow it and then you've got to refund the business, you're not really taking any risk with that. So it's just kind of interesting to see how people build the business and balance all of that. Do you actually think work-life balance is a thing? Because I personally don't buy that analogy totally.
I'm not sure about balance. It's really about integration.
Oh, that's
right?
a good one.
So it's about overlaying. If I block out what I want to do with my life. So, for example, on Wednesdays, I try not to do any work calls. So Wednesdays is so time blocking, right?
Yeah.
So Wednesdays is a creative day. So that's when I write or I shoot videos or I try and book podcasts on Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. And then Friday, I try and take off. Sometimes when off means just off the grid, right, doing my own thing. Sometimes it means it's an extra creative day. Sometimes I'm traveling. Sometimes it's like vacation, like long weekends.
Yes.
And then so I really try and block Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays as the work time right? Wednesday's the creative day. Friday's kind of like a buffer day, which means either off or a little extra creative time. And anything that would fall on a Monday, a Tuesday, or a Thursday, it's like, well, I'm deciding that that's when I've got client calls. That's when I'll do webinars. That's when, I'm doing our internal team meetings. A lot of times our schedule just sort of happens and we don't take proactive control of, when are you at your creative peak? When do you tend to get tired? Team meetings, always in the morning. By after 12 p.m., I've got zero patience. I've got very little diplomacy left, and it just would not go well. Yeah. So we have team meetings either at 9:30 or 10:30 in the morning, and then then they get the nice version of David. They get the polite, diplomatic, good leader version of David. You put a meeting on my calendar at 4 o'clock with the team, I'm going to bite somebody's head off.
Nice.
Or I'm just going to be really cranky and unpleasant.
Yeah. I'm glad we're recording the podcast.
I know. Woo! Morning person.
Yes. We're going to be uncensored David Newman.
Exactly. So that, I think, the work-life integration is really asking yourself, number one, what do you want to do? How do you want your ideal day or ideal week to look like? And then how do you integrate that with your life? So, do you want to have coffee dates with your spouse every Wednesday morning from 9 o'clock to 10:30? Mm-hmm. Go for a walk in the park, go get some coffee, take the dog out for a spin, do whatever you need to do. Great. So block off 9 to 10:30, right, is coffee date with spouse. Friday, do you want to go out to dinner every Friday night? Do you want to do something creative Friday mornings, Friday midday? Do you do Taekwondo? Do you have a painting class, photography class? Literally fill your life first, and then the remaining time, you are so focused, so clear, and hopefully optimized so that your business, the time that you put into your business, is true premium time. Where you can, like you talked about, your thinking room.
Yes.
Right? Where do you get that 5x ROI? Yeah. If you spend an hour in the thinking room, man, that's like 5 hours to any other mortal human being. Maybe even 10 hours to some other mortal, because that's where you make the quantum leaps.
Yes.
So it's like, oh, well, Chris isn't available. He's in the thinking room. People go, what's he in there, like daydreaming, wasting time? No, he's in there 10xing his business.
Yeah.
He's in there 10xing his future. He's in there 10xing his family's future and his team's future. So that's what I mean by integration, is put it together in a way where the puzzle pieces make sense.
Well, it's interesting because earlier, I asked about the failures and how you've learned from them. And I was going to ask you about the successes because I didn't want to forget, but you kind of just answered.
That's totally one of them, for sure.
I would say that is like the one. I want to start getting into your book and I loved your book. I mean, look, the title, Do It Selling, 77 Instant Action Ideas to Land Better Clients, Bigger Deals, and Higher Fees. And I remember reading that title going, 77. Because, in marketing, it's always like the number one goal or the top 3 or the top 5. And I'm going, David should know better. I mean, he put 77, Some people can't even count to 10. And when I read this book, I genuinely wish I had it when I was just starting my business.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh
Me too.
Gosh. And so, right off the bat, you discuss self-worth and self-esteem.
Yeah.
And in particular, why people are choosing to work with you. A couple tips you throw out there, they're simple, but they're extremely profound. And you must be a better person and not worry about being good enough or smart enough. I believe that was a direct quote.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to learn that, and when did you start to see that return on your mental investment?
So the funny answer I was going to say when you started asking the question is like, I would say last week is when I started to really master it, because it's an ongoing work in progress.
Yeah, never ending.
No, but I think the taking this idea. So just for the folks that are not familiar with these two terms, the way I talk about it as far as a sales persona, right? Because we have our sort of sales persona, and then we have our own human persona. So self-worth is how you think of yourself just in isolation. Mm-hmm. Self-esteem is how you think of yourself in relation to others. So self-esteem, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Who am I to be in this business? Who am I to be a financial advisor? Who am I to be an entrepreneur? There's all kinds of people that are smarter than me and bigger than me and richer than me. So imposter syndrome lives there. Perfectionism lives there. Second guessing and self-doubt lives there. Once you are aware that there's that little voice in your head, right? There's that little devil on your shoulder going, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. Who are you to be this big guy with the fancy office and the fancy podcast and blah, 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 blah. And then there's similarly, the voice of objective intelligence, little angel on your shoulder, little white outfit instead of little red devil outfit, little white angel outfit,
yes,
is reminding you of all your smarts, all your past successes, all the education, all the hard work, all of the past client successes, all of the kudos and the thank yous. And Chris, you changed my life. And Chris, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we met. And I took that idea and I totally ran with it. And my life is different. My business is different. My bank account is different. My family tree is different. All of those things, right? We need to learn to turn the volume down on the little red guy on our shoulder and turn the volume up on the little white guy or gal on this shoulder so that you are paying more attention to the voice of objective intelligence and you're paying a lot less attention to that voice of judgment and criticism and negativity and pessimism and cynicism. So that's a learned skill. People go, oh, well, when will that little red devil voice go away? The answer is never. When will the volume go down to 0? Answer is never. But your goal is to get that volume down to a 1 or a 2 on the red devil, the voice of judgment, and to get the volume up to maybe an 8 or a 9 on the voice of objective intelligence, and just remind yourself to stay on that path.
Interesting. Well, in the world of not really planning, but in investing, there's a term called loss aversion, and it's the whole idea of it's much you all things being equal, you feel the pain of a loss more than you feel the benefit of a gain. And there's actual mathematical backing to that. Like quantitatively, for every percent that you lose, you have to make up about 2%. And so the qualitative side of that is critical because very similar to you, I've seen businesses all the time where the top dog, you look at it from an outside perspective and go, man, this guy or gal has everything. But inside their head, I mean, they are self-sabotaging to the nth degree.
Very much so.
And just switching that, that mental return on investment, it's almost impossible to quantify, but qualifiably you can tell. I mean, people get healthier, they're sleeping more, they're happier, they're energized. Lose weight, build muscle, right? All of that fun stuff. Now, I wanted to tell you, I could not have agreed more. And when you mentioned in chapter 10, which was 17 reasons to sell to the top, that if you are going to sell anything, the top dog is where you need to aim. And in particular, I believe it was point 4. It described a partner attitude versus peddler attitude. Yeah. That hit me deep. And as I was reading this, I was curious about how you've structured your business and how you you charge for your sales services, as there's so many different sales coaches out there.
Yeah.
But you have a massively successful business around it. So was it always that way, or did you morph that as time went on?
Oh, it's been a lot of morphing. There's been a lot of morphing going on behind the scenes. So, fast forward to today, it is a consulting fee plus a revenue share. So truly, we do have a partnership,
Smart.
like a growth partner kind of mindset. We no longer just take clients and take their money and then say, maybe it'll work for you. Hey, maybe it won't. Good luck either way. And, we're not running a casino. A lot of times you invest in marketing or sales training or a fractional CMO or any of these things, and you literally feel like you're gambling. So if there's shared risk, shared reward, that growth partner relationship I think is healthy, where it's shared risk and shared reward on the upside. So that's kind of our highest level. We also do some group work. So we have an amazing community of folks. And there it is. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, where you need to kind of put results on the scoreboard. Otherwise, you're voted off the island. And literally every quarter, we disinvite people. We tell people, hey, I got bad news for you. You need to stop giving us money because you're not doing the work, you're not coachable, you're not putting points on the scoreboard. So it's almost like we go from being a sales mentoring company to we are now your sales manager. If we were your sales manager, we would not put up with month after month or quarter after quarter of bad performance or poor performance, right? So if a sales manager wouldn't put up with your bad performance if you're running a consulting firm or a coaching company or a training company, but you're not doing the work, you're not showing up, you're not, your numbers are not moving in the right direction. Sure. Even though it's to our financial disadvantage because we basically fire you as a client, which is never fun. But if you're not doing the work, I always tell people we cannot afford to have a single unsuccessful client in the marketplace. Because what I don't want to have happen is, I hired David Newman. We did that do-it marketing program, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't do anything for my business. Now, when that happens, right, you could take that one of two ways. Keep charging their credit card until they quit because they're tired of paying you for not getting results. Or you kind of put the fear of God in them a little bit and say, oh my gosh, if I don't start shaping up here, they're going to fire me. Yeah. They're going to vote me off the island.
Yep.
So we decided to take that energetic shift, which has cost us significant money. And we just said, listen, if you're not putting in the work, if you're not showing up, if you're not coachable, if you're not implementing, and you're not generating huge positive ROI, like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times what you're paying us, we don't want you as a client. Yeah. And we've had these tough conversations. We've let people go, and we've let that revenue go. And I don't think there's any other sales training company that fires clients for lack of results like we do.
Capitalizers, this episode is sponsored by the best-selling book, Capitalize Your Finances, the how-to framework that takes you from compoundingly clueless to monetarily magnificent. Regardless of where you're at in your financial life, whether you're just beginning to express interest and commitment to your personal finances, at the pinnacle of your career, winding down into retirement, or thinking about your legacy for future generations, this book walks you through every step of the way so you can succeed on your terms and with your own values and passions guiding you. After reading this book, you will officially have Christopher A. Panayotou, the Cap in Capitalize, in your back pocket, guiding you in detail through every step of the way so that you can take charge of your finances, not the other way around. Head on over to Amazon.com today and start capitalizing your finances to the fullest with this incredible book, Capitalize Your Finances, the how-to financial framework that takes you from compoundingly clueless to monetarily magnificent. And now, back to the episode.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you in our industry, it's kind of an unwritten rule that advisors or planners don't fire clients. I mean, we've had to fire clients in the past, and you said it much more appropriately than probably I would have. But you look at people and go, like in our industry, it doesn't matter how great of a planner you are. If you're overspending, in some cases you don't have any more money. Period. Pretty hard to plan with zero. It's no different than you. It's like very hard to strategically consult or be a sales consultant to someone that just doesn't want to sell anymore.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Well, and you actually, that's a perfect segue into the next question I had, which when you talk about credibility hacks, there are so many ways to climb the success ladder in sales, whether it's writing a publication or a book.
Yeah.
Whether it's hosting a podcast, earning a local award, you name it. And actually, this was interesting. A couple days ago, a couple business partners of mine and I were having lunch, and one of them coincidentally asked me what has earned me the highest return on investment out of all of those things. And it kind of made me pause because I don't know about you. I don't think about that stuff because I'm in it all the time, right? And so it's impossible for me to quantify and those that know their respective businesses can qualifiably answer the question, which credibility hack do you think has provided you with the highest return on investment?
I would say it's publishing the books. So that's sort of like the 800-pound gorilla. Mm-hmm. When you talk about visibility, credibility, authority, the books are probably the biggest boulder in that avalanche, so to speak, but they're not the fastest. They're probably the slowest. Mm-hmm. So it's the biggest impact, but the slowest time to gain momentum. You could – so the quickest thing for us has been a webinar. So – and when we used to do a lot of online advertising, paid advertising, which we don't do anymore, but we used to do a lot of paid advertising, we would have this evergreen webinar. And it was a really, really good webinar, really good content, really good education. And that's really, I think, that's kind of marketing 2023, 2024, and beyond. Marketing equals prospect education equals marketing when people don't know you. So we would put an ad out. The ad would go to the evergreen webinar. People would watch and engage with, because it was interactive. They would engage with the evergreen webinar. We would have a call to action to book a call with us. They would book a call, and they would become a client, all within 48 hours. Now, I don't think it's ever happened that someone picked up one of my books, read it, read through it in 48 hours, and said, I got to call this guy and give him tens of thousands of dollars. If someone's out there and feels like doing that, feel free to call me. My number is 555-1212. Call right now. Operators are standing by. That's 555-1212. No, I'm kidding. That's the Hollywood movie telephone number. So the slow burn is people saying, Chris, I've listened to every episode of your podcast. Chris, I've bought your book. Chris, I've given 5 of my friends and colleagues copies of your book. Chris, I love watching your videos, and I've been following you for years, and now I'm ready. And it's like, what have you been waiting for? Right? I was ready when you first. Anyway, so it's frustrating because some people are on a very long fuse, and some people are medium, and some people are short. So when it comes to marketing, sales, business growth, revenue growth, I think the master stroke that people need to take away is, how do you learn to play the long game and the short game at the same time? So, for example, you've got a killer combination, right? You've got the podcast. Someone listens today. They can literally call you this afternoon, tomorrow morning, whatever. Or they bought your book 6 months ago. They read your book 3 months ago. They forgot they read your book today. They're listening to this going, wait a minute, I have a copy of Chris's book here somewhere. Hang on. Oh, here it is. They reread your book. They listen to more episodes of the podcast. And then 6 months from now, ringy-dingy, hey, Chris, it's Joe Jones in Kansas City. I think I need some help. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So how do we master the short game and the long game? So putting enough bait on the right hooks in the right oceans to catch the right fish today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter, next year, not being so married to the long game that everything takes forever, and not being so married to the short game that all people hear is buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, book a call, book a call, book a call, book a call. Because that gets tiresome also.
Oh, yes. It's exhausting. Well, and it's funny you say the book and ringy-dingy. That's another one we're going to use in our shorts tie, ringy-dingy. But we've actually had some people that have looked to become clients this year, and it's one of those things too where I don't know if you get this feeling. It's not like an arrogant thing, but in your mind you're going, dude, I've done a podcast on this. I've written a book on this thing. And so I've gotten to a point now where I tell people, okay, if you don't want to do it, it's fine. Just then read the book. Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Do it yourself.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting because then people come back, they've read the book, or if they're readingly challenged, we have it in audio, and they go, I listened to it, and now I get it. Like, okay, I'm ready to go. And it's one of those things where in my mind, I never say this out loud. Well, I guess I'm saying it out loud now. It's like, I'm going to tell you the same thing. It's going to be the same thing. I can get more nerdy and into the weeds, but I'm going to give you the same advice. It's probably no different than what you've gone through.
Totally.
You know? And it's one of those things where it's like almost positive frustration because you're like, oh, thank God this person finally got it.
Yeah.
But there's so many ways that you have to throw it at them.
Yeah.
This is going to be a different question for you, but I want to frame it accordingly. So one of my favorite questions to ask potential investors or asset managers that want to be in my strategy and framework is how much of your net worth is invested in it? And another favorite I've told my followers to ask potential financial planners they're looking at hiring is what's in your portfolio and can I see it?
Wow.
And you've brought up some great points when you listed questions to ask before you hire a business coach or a mentor.
Yeah.
But from an equivalent perspective of how I ask my questions, what would you tell our listeners to ask when they're looking to hire sales coaches? My first thought was, what has your sales growth in the last 2, 3, or 4 years been? But what's your take?
Sure. So it's funny that you mentioned, but I have a blog post about this. I've written about this. I've ranted about this. So my rant on this is beware of the coach without a coach. Beware of the mentor without a mentor. Beware of the consultant who doesn't hire consultants themselves. So one of my first questions is, how much have you invested in your own personal or business growth, development, mentoring, coaches, etc.? So my number is between $150,000 and $200,000 per year. So I invest in mentors around things that I don't know how to do. So when I was first learning online courses, take you back to 2013, hired a brilliant guy named David Garland. I said, hey, David, I want to learn all about how your approach to online courses. When I first got into online advertising, hired a guy named Jimmy Harding. Said, Jimmy, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google ads, give me the download, give me the education, right? So you name it, every major inflection point in my business has been either consultant-driven or mentor-driven because I didn't know the things that I didn't know, and I had to build my toolkit. So I would ask a mentor, who have been your mentors, who's been the biggest influences on your thinking, where have you gone to other mentors and consultants to build your own toolkit or build your own business? The second thing, and this is, I'll get some pushback on this, but I'll say it anyway.
This is a safe space.
This is a safe space. Depending on what kind of consulting or coaching you're doing, and this is where the bro scalers comes back in, right? The whole concept of bro scalers is you'll have this bro and say, hey, I built a $5 million business. I'm going to teach you how to build a $5 million business also. That's great until you get a prospect who's got a $20 million business, right? So do you have to be ahead in the game that you're coaching or consulting or teaching? Do you yourself have to be ahead? For years and years, I thought the answer was yes. So if I'm running a $2.5 million consulting business, I can teach someone with a $500K or a $1 million or a 1.2 or a 1.5, but here's someone with a $5 million business, I can't help them. That is actually not true at all. So I think there's a divergent point when you're talking about strategy, when you're talking about advising someone on things like marketing, messaging, positioning, because you can see clearly, like I can see where a $10 million consultancy is screwing up their marketing, their messaging, their packaging, and their pricing. I don't have to have a $10 million business myself to see those mistakes because they're the same mistakes. It's not really a revenue thing, right? So am I in a position to help someone whose consulting business or coaching business is bigger than mine? For years, I had that imposter syndrome. Like, no, you can't. You can only help the little fish. You can't help the big fish because the big fish are better than you. until you start talking to some big fish and realize that when you're talking, like, oh my God, David, that's so good. David, I'm going to write that down. David, is that in your book? David, that's fantastic. And these folks have a business 5 times bigger than mine, 10 times bigger than mine. Where this really came to light is thinking back 10 plus years to my own corporate consulting career, right? I was consulting to companies like IBM, American Express, QVC, Microsoft. Guess what? Newsflash, folks, they make more money than I do. So it's not like
just a little.
It's not like, hey, I can't consult to Microsoft because Microsoft makes billions and billions and billions of dollars. There's pockets inside Microsoft that do not know what I knew at that time, and they placed great economic value in learning it and implementing it. So I figure if I'm good enough to teach 44 of the Fortune 500, and I do actually have 44 of the Fortune 500 companies on my client roster, I'm like, why wouldn't I be able to teach a $10 million consultancy or a $15 million coaching company or a $20 million training firm? If I can teach Microsoft, QVC, IBM, Merrill Lynch, American Express, trust me, kids, I can teach you. And that's where the bro scalers started to kind of fall away. And I realized I don't need to be bigger than you to be of service to you.
Sure.
That's huge, right? I don't need to be bigger than you to be of great service to you.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big inflection point. So I would take that off the list about, do you have a business as big as mine and chest thumping and all of that. And then I would simply say, listen, do I get one-on-one access to the guru? Because people go, oh, well, I could sign up with Tony Robbins. Sure, you could sign up with Tony Robbins,
Yeah, but you're not
but you
getting
will
Tony.
never talk to Tony, ever.
No.
Like, you will talk to like Tony's, first layer of coaches, second layer of coaches, third layer of assistant coaches, and, maybe at an event, you'll get like a selfie or something. But that's it. That is it. So do you have direct access to the guru? Or will I be working with minions or juniors or people who are, kind of staff, or do I get access to Chris? So when you hire Chris, guess what? You work with Chris. When you hire David, guess what? You work with David. So there's no minions, there's no whatever.
No.
And then, is the material current? Here's the other thing. The other big secret is 2023, 2024, 2025, whenever you're listening to this, there is a strong demarcation point around 2020, in my business especially, around marketing, sales, prospects, recession, uncertainty, global pandemics, warfare, disasters, meltdowns of every kind. Is the material relevant, and was it written after, pick a day, 2020, 2022, whatever? In other words, is it in the current moment of uncertainty, skepticism, buyers are lazy, busy, befuddled, burned out, maxed out, scared? Is there a recession? Are we in one? Is one coming? We don't know. But all of this kind of roiling and crazy turbulence that's going on in buyers' minds is what I'm learning post 2020 or 2023, or is it pre? And people listening might be like, oh, I'm sure everyone's program is post. It's not.
No.
There's people teaching crap from the 1990s in my business. So marketing training, sales training. Like, hey, you remember Seth Godin's book, Purple Cow, kids? That came out 20 years ago. That is not new material.
No.
Right? There's great stuff. Brian Tracy, yes, fantastic, wonderful.
Yeah.
Up to date for the current mindset, skill set, and tool set that you need to talk to today's buyers? No. So any sort, and I talk about this in the Do It Selling book in the introduction, any sort of global pandemic, meltdown, terrorist war, or future specter thereof, like where it might be on the horizon, but it might not be, and it's kind of like a mirage, but I'm still scared and my buying patterns are being impacted by that. Knowing how to navigate in the storm is what this is all about.
Yes.
So another question is this current to today's buying reality, or is it nice theory that used to work back in 2017?
Interesting. Well, and through that monologue and journey you took us on, there was one thing that I thought of, and I haven't even talked to my brother about this yet, but we're going to be putting it out on Instagram. There's 3 types of buyers and 3 types of mentalities, in my opinion. There are the poor, the rich, and the wealthy. And the poor mindsets are the classics. They look at it and they go straight to the price, and they are penny wise and pound foolish.
Totally.
And by the way, you could have a poor mindset and have a couple $1 million and kind of just go from there. The rich mindset is a mindset where they've got that money, but they are ruthlessly cutthroat and they almost try to just gouge and price out, and you don't want that. But it's the wealthy that I think everyone should aspire to be, where they understand that, okay, there is a price to pay, but the relationship you get is going to be infinitely greater than any dollar. So for listeners listening in, don't be poor, don't be rich, always be wealthy. Now, it's astounding to me how many people today are completely clueless about what you call MMA, which is not mixed martial arts, okay? It's money-making activity. And I can think of multiple times, even in the past quarter, where it was almost as if I had to beg these people to want to take my money. And being a sales guy, that drove me up the wall. Up the wall. And it also left me baffled. And so what do you think is the deal with the majority of these companies simply not knowing how the heck to sell?
Well, so let me define money-making activity for the folks listening. Money-making activity is activity that will bring you one step closer to a check. So it could be initial prospecting, it could be following up, it could be sending out a proposal, it could be upselling or cross-selling an existing client onto a next project. But there are, in the corporate world, you're absolutely right, it's almost like there's a sales prevention department. Like, no, let me fill out a form, let me send you a permission thing, let me give you a DocuSign, it's like, what? How about we take care of the money piece first?
I know.
And then once we kind of have the handshake, then you can send me the DocuSign and the permissions and the release form and this and that. But they're putting everything in the way of a sale. It's almost like they're bureaucrats and the sales function is secondary. As opposed to making people feel confident, making people feel a sense of certainty, making people feel that their business is welcome, making people feel that they just made a smart decision by engaging with this company or hiring this firm. I remember once I was on a customer service call with American Express. And I think they stopped asking this question, or at least the last few times that I called, they didn't ask me. I had a problem. They fixed the problem. And the question at the end of the call was, did our service exceed your expectations? And I said, no, it didn't. And the guy's like, well, why not? I said, let me walk you through what just happened. You made a mistake. I called you for some help fixing it. You fixed the mistake. That's a definition of you met my expectations. Like, you better fix my problem. Did that exceed your expectations? No. That's called table stakes, folks. Right? You screw up, you fix the screw up, that's table stakes. I'm not leaving. I'm not going to go get a Platinum Discover card. I'm not even sure if there is a Platinum Discover card. But you know, so did you lose my business today? No. Did we exceed your expectations? No, you met my expectations. So it's this, you know, it's almost like good quality sales or customer service relationships are now supposed to be like exceptional, like, oh, this is the purple unicorn. This is magic. It's like, it's not magic, it's your job. This is what you get paid for. Now, we can talk about being exceptional. We can talk about making people feel incredibly welcome and incredibly comfortable and incredibly secure and incredibly optimistic about their future working with you. But that, you know, American Express example, that was not it.
No. Well, it's funny. So you mentioned steak. So tonight, obviously, I'm excited to go to dinner with you and your infinitely better half.
Yes.
And I remember I was at El Gaucho. This was a while ago, and we were booking, I forget what it was, I think like a year-end Christmas party. And I go up to the front desk, and I say, hey, I want a private room, and, you know, basically ready to not write the check, but give you my credit card and all that. And the front desk lady, in her defense, probably caught her off guard. She goes, we don't, like, that's not my job. Let me go get the manager. I go, okay. And she goes and tries to find the manager. Manager's not there. And she goes, well, let me get your information. And I go, well, why don't you just do it? And she looks at me kind of like, what did you just say? I go, yeah, like, why don't you just take, basically I said, let me spell it out for you. Why don't you take my money now and then you go back to your manager and say, look what I did. And then you look even better than you may already be. Not saying you're bad, but it's going to move you up in the industry. And then you might get a raise or a promotion for doing this. Like, do you want any of those things? And it was like I smacked her in the face with a 2x4. Not that I would ever hit a woman. Metaphorically, 2x4. Yeah. And then she finally did it. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you know, do the thing. It's not rocket science. Yeah. You know, it's bizarre. Now, this is going to be more of a business question than a finance question. And I'm going to be vulnerable here with you. One of my weaknesses, and I use that term loosely, that I have is when I'm speaking with people that are not clients, but they're asking questions that would require my services. The helper in me, maybe the little white guy on my shoulder, can't help but just give them and tell them exactly what needs to be done. Yeah. I can't help it. Yeah. I'm well aware that there's a balancing act with that, and I'm certain that has cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so how do you balance the act of being extremely helpful, which I'm always going to make sure I do,
sure,
but also not give away the whole house? I mean, I'm at a point where financially, I mean, I could do that and our business is going to be fine and I'm very blessed. But we have a lot of younger listeners that are running businesses that have the same heart that you and I have, but they can't afford to do that. So how do you balance that?
So inside the Do It Selling book, spoiler alert, there is a section called 17 Things to Say When You're Asked for Free Consulting. And some of them are a little bit more harsh, and some are a little bit more loving, and some are a little bit more giving, and some are a little bit more stingy. So if someone asks a super detailed financial question about a certain kind of financial instrument or their situation or their backstory, at that point you're like, hey, I'd love to help you with that. And you can always throw compliance under the bus, which I think is always a good thing to do. Yeah. Based on federal financial regulations, I'm not really allowed to discuss that with you unless you become a client.
I actually push them in front of the bus, not
That's
under
it.
the bus.
Exactly. Yes. So that would be like the harshest kind of way to drop the hammer.
Yeah.
The other way is, of course, the classic consulting answer. Well, Chris, a lot of that depends. So I have clients that I work with who, scenario A, I have other clients that I work with who, scenario B, and I have yet a third group of clients who, scenario C. So not knowing much about the details and the nuances of your specific situation, and you know, by the way, sidebar, I'm stepping out of the role play here. Using humor is always fantastic.
10 out of 10.
Right? So you could say, I'm not saying you need to become a client for me to give you specific advice on this, but you need to become a client for me to give you specific advice on this. And then, you know, again, once you get them smiling and laughing, they're like, okay, I get it. But seriously, you can say, I have clients that A, B, C, there's some factors involved. Now, if it's something super simple, I'm a huge believer in give it, just give it away.
Set it and forget
so, Chris,
it.
Is it better if I have this kind of retirement account or that kind of retirement account? Bob, let me ask you just in very broad terms, criteria 1, criteria 2, criteria 3. He says it's criteria 3. Great. For you, until you're at this point, your best bet is over here. Now, of course, when you give an answer, and especially an answer based on expertise and some level of certainty and confidence, they're like, well, let me ask you another question. This is like going to a cocktail party and you find out someone's a chiropractor. Oh, doc, I have this thing on my neck. And, sometimes the chiropractor goes, come here for a second. Come here. It's okay. Whoa, that feels so much better. And sometimes it's like, I'd love to help you. Here's my card. Why don't you make an appointment for Tuesday?
Yeah.
And we'll explore more formally.
Yeah.
So as much as you can give, I would give. But I think the difference between just giving and then not doing the other couple things I mentioned, which is scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. It depends. I would need to know more. Using a little bit of humor. I'm not saying that you need to become a client, but you need to become a client, right? Or you say, I help my clients through this all the time. I'm not really qualified to give you a nuanced, detailed answer, but based on what you've shared with me so far, my guess would be, answer.
Bingo.
And then so you're kind of opening the door, but you're not necessarily saying, let me be your financial planner without being your financial planner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in one of your chapters, Now, which again, that's the title of the chapter.
Yes.
It talks about making sure urgency is top of mind when making a sale.
Yes.
We have a fair amount of attorneys and CPAs that listen to this podcast. And in those line of works, as well as financial planning, generally speaking, the sales process is more drawn out.
Yeah.
Between you and me, and I guess literally everyone that's listening, it can be a pain in the ass.
Sure.
And so I remember reading once that the average person says no 7 times before they say yes. What would your advice be to those in the professions I just mentioned? Does the now still apply?
Sure. So the now chapter specifically is about using now timeframes. So for example, someone walks into your office and you say, I'm curious, David, what brings your financial future to the forefront for you right now? Are you having a baby? Are you thinking of retiring? Is there some, did your CPA say, hey, dude, if you don't do something right now, bad things will happen. Why are we talking right now? Just literally inserting the word now and the sense of immediacy into your questions. So for example, did your portfolio undergo some major changes, major ups, major downs? Is your tax bill much higher this year than it was in previous years? So again, what's bringing this to the forefront now? What happens if you solve it now? What happens if you don't solve it now? You must have a million questions. I'm curious, which question is top of mind for you now, right? If you were to get an investment plan or a financial plan that would make you feel comfortable, how would that improve your life now? Do you and your spouse argue about finances? Is that happening yet? It is? Oh gosh, that's too bad. So if we were to put you two on the same page financially, how would that make your relationship better right now? So I'm using now, right now, this immediate today, tomorrow, this day, this hour, this second language. I'm embedding that into my questioning strategy. So someone's like, well, I've had a really big uptick in my personal income, but I still have a $250,000 insurance policy. I guess I'll worry about that next year, right? Is there a reason that you're reassessing your insurance needs right now? Yes, there is, right? My income went from whatever to whatever. And remind me, what's the purpose of life insurance again? Oh, it's to cover my lost income for the situation where I die, whatever it is. So when we bring people into that now frame that I talk about with those kinds of now type of questions that speak to immediate relevance, immediate urgency, immediate, right now in the moment, why is this important to you? Why are you looking to make a change? Why are you curious about that right now? Well, because my kid is 17, we have a 529 plan. I'm not sure there's enough money in there to, send the kid to the college that we want to send him to. And I just found out that the college had a 15% tuition increase. That's kind of throwing a monkey wrench into. So again, unless you ask these now-based questions, urgency comes from the prospect. It does not come from us needing to make our numbers right now. So the more you find out about their urgency is the only urgency that matters. Their urgency is the only urgency that's going to drive a decision sooner rather than later so that you don't need to go through this 6-month buying process.
Interesting. Well, your 12th section in your book, clients you don't want.
Duh.
Okay, so this is going to be just more of a fun question I've had to ask. And you don't have to answer it because I know it might be a little touchy. You don't have to say specifics because I definitely wouldn't. But
sure.
Can you remember some of the worst experiences in past clients, and what did you learn from those experiences?
Sure.
Or if you could pick one.
Sure. So there's a section in the book called your 9-point client GPS. GPS stands for Goofball Prevention Screening. Goofball Prevention Screening, your 9-point client GPS. The short answer is every single one of those criteria was from one, not an amalgamation, not a composite. It was one nightmare client that I had back in 2011 who shall remain nameless. It's like he who shall not be named, like in Harry Potter.
Their social security numbers.
Exactly. So I literally said, what were all the danger signs that I ignored? What were all the things this person said? What were all the things this person did? Oh, yeah, 1, 2, 3. I had 9 items on the list. And I said, well, let me abstract those to more of a general, situation. Number 1, they're bragging about how difficult they are to work with. Number 2, they say things like, oh, well, you're the 4th financial planner that I've hired in the past 2 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Let's see how you do.
Yeah.
And they're kind of bragging about, like, oh, I'm going to be a giant pain in your butt. You're going to get rid of me faster than you can possibly imagine. If I don't get back to you, if you send me an email or leave me a voicemail and I don't get back to you, it's not you. I'm just really busy. I travel a lot. I'm in a lot of meetings. Like, oh my God. Like they're telling you all of the horrible behavior that they're going to,
how much I suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had one guy, different guy than this one, but he said, all I'm asking for is that you pay for yourself almost immediately. And I'm like, what? It's like, no, that's not how this works. First of all, I'm not doing any work. You're doing all the work. I am coaching, I am guiding, I am advising, I am mentoring. So if you're not getting ROI, and I now say this, by the way, on sales calls, I say, by the way, if you're not getting positive ROI to the tune of 2x, 3x, 4x, or 5x within the first 4-5 months of us working together, that means one of us is not doing his job, and it's not usually me. I will literally say that. Say, Chris, by the way, just so you know, if you're not seeing a dramatic level of ROI in our first 3, 4, 5 months together, that means that one of us is not doing his job, and it's not usually me. Now, when I say it's not usually me, I say that with a little smile, a little glimmer in my eye. People sometimes laugh, and they go, no, I get it. Sometimes I'll even go to the extreme. I'll say, listen, at the end of the day, all I do is talk. And they go, what? I said, at the end of the day, all I do is talk. They say, but I thought this was like coaching and mentoring and guidance. And no, it's all of those things. It is very specific talk. It is strategic talk. It is tactical talk. It is actionable talk. It is immediately implementable talk. So we get off the phone at 2:30 in the afternoon, 2:31, you're doing something different. You're sending a different kind of email. You're having a different kind of sales call with one of your prospects. You're doing a totally different kind of discovery. You're attracting clients that are way bigger than before. Your pricing has been 10x'd. You literally used to charge $25,000 for your first initial little piece of whatever. Now you're charging $250,000 for a year-long contract. So I tell them it's very specific, actionable, tactical, very situational talk. But let me repeat, at the end of the day, all I do is talk. The action and the results are on your end of the Zoom call. Mm-hmm. So I could be the world's greatest strategist, the world's greatest sales coach, the world's greatest sales trainer and sales mentor. If you don't pick up the tools that I'm laying out in front of you and get to work, none of this is going to cause even a tiny ripple in your bank account or in your sales numbers or in your success rate. So let's be clear on that. At the end of the day, all I do is talk. And then I will say to them, literally, are you okay with that? Because this is the entitled, I just want it done for me. I want to wash my hands, not think about it. So you'll take care of all the sales stuff, David, is that right? It's like, no. We're not an agency. There's no done for you, right? This is like going to the gym. I can't do your reps for you. I can't lose the weight for you. I'm a fantastic personal trainer, if we go down that metaphor, right? I will give you the workouts. I will give you the nutrition plan. I will be in the gym with you. What are those things called? Like the boxing bag or the speed bag.
Yeah.
I will be in there doing the speed bag with you, dude. I will just not be entering the ring getting punched in the face on your behalf, right? I will teach you how to go in there and punch the other guy in the face so you don't get hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing the boxing match for you. I am training, coaching, mentoring, strategizing, giving you the skills, the tools, the mindset, everything you need to be successful. At the end of the day, all I do is talk. If they get that, they've probably passed the 9-point client goofball prevention screening.
Yeah. Well, one of our really good friends who's a CPA, first guy that ever took a meeting with me, Scott Lamolli. I remember we were talking and we've done a lot of work together. And one of the things that he says, and it's a great quote, shout out Scott, is does this person, possible client, pass the beer test? I mean, and I don't drink, but the whole idea is after work, you go out to drinks and you can just chat like friends.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, right? And if they don't pass that test, you're out.
Yes.
You know, and I've just started turning that corner where I'm like, okay, these people better pass the test. I'm not saying you've got to, not to be facetious or inappropriate, but go home with all of your clients right after work. But what I'm saying is you want to, especially with what we do, it is a marriage. It's not dating.
Yeah.
You know, one of the keys to growing your business was the ability to grow and go upscale to larger clients. And when did you start that upward trajectory? And when did you set a minimum? And when you set it, did your business slow down or did it grow even faster than before?
Well, here's a great, and I get this question a lot because one of the things that we also teach our clients is they need to have standards and guidelines and criteria. So for example, we say if you're a solo consultant, you have to be making at least $100,000 a year. If you're a consulting firm, you have to be bringing in at least $1 million of top-line revenue. So we work with solos in that kind of 100 to 500K per year. My mind always goes to month because the bigger companies goes, we're making 200K a month, 500K a month, whatever.
Yeah.
The bigger folks need to be doing at least 80K per month or $1 million a year. And some are $3 million, $4 million, $5 million companies. They're going from 7 figures to 8. What I teach them is you need to have client criteria just like I have client criteria. The secret with this, Chris, is that when you have clear guidelines and criteria of who qualifies to work with you and who does not, this will attract both people who meet the criteria and people who don't. I'm gonna lay that on you again because this was profound.
Yes.
When I first stumbled on this and I started to see it in action. When you have clearly articulated criteria around who you will accept as a client, that attracts both people who meet the criteria and people who do not. So for example, I will have people call me and say, David, our consultancy, we're small, we're young, we're at $950,000. We don't fall into, we're not at $1 million yet, but man, we're so close. We can taste it. Is there any possible way? Can you squeak us in? Can you make an exception in our case? I guarantee you we'll be at $1 million run rate next month or the month after. We're at $950K. We're just not at $1 million. I can then make a decision, right? You can then make a decision, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have this much assets to invest, right? Are you already this number of years into your whatever? So someone says, oh, you only work with companies that are like 5 years plus. Man, we're 3.5 years, but we also meet criteria 2 and criteria 3. We just don't meet criteria 1. Is there any possible way that you would consider working with us? Now think of the dynamics behind this, where we could be saying, hey, we'll do business with anybody, anyone, anywhere, anytime, any kind of client, any size numbers, doesn't matter, right? Now you're chasing, you're convincing, you're persuading, and there's way too much convincing and persuading. You say, we only work with this type of client, with this type of criteria that's at this kind of level. And then you sit there and you're like, please, God, please send me more of these people. If no one comes, I'll change my criteria, I promise. And you're sitting there and there's the cold, dark frightening night of the soul going, did I just cut off my nose to spite my face? And the next day, 2 ideal clients show up and they sign up like this because they will say something like, Chris, saw your website, saw your LinkedIn, saw the criteria, saw the bullets of who you work with, who you don't work with, saw the outcome statements of what you help your clients with. Dude, you are singing our song. These are exactly our problems. This is exactly where we want to go and where we need to go. I read your book. I've watched your videos. I've listened to your show. Where do I sign up? And they show up pre-sold. They show up pre-sold.
Yes.
You have no criteria and no guidelines. No one shows up pre-sold. What is it you do? What kind of companies do you work with?
Yeah.
What do you stand for? Oh, yeah, I'm not sure we want that. No, that's not. We're talking to 5 other firms. It's like, no. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
These are my people. These are not. So if I give you the outward criteria of what it is to be my people, you will self-identify, right? You're mentally raising your hand, and you're going, David only works with clients like us. Look, $1 million to $10 million consulting firm, 1 to 4 equity partners, staff anywhere from 5 to 50. It's like, we're a $4 million firm. We have 30 people. We have 3 equity partners. We are his guy. And then they call and they go, is there any possible way that you'd consider helping us working? Can we have a chat about what it might look like to hire you? So at that point, it's not if, it is how much, and how does it work?
Yeah.
I would much rather have an initial conversation about how much, and how does it work than, hi, you're a sales guy? What kind of sales guy?
Sure.
So criteria. That's the gold.
Well, and before we wrap up, which is crazy. I mean, we've been going for a little while now.
This would be 5 episodes.
5
episodes in one.
5 episodes in one. To close out before we wrap it up, what is the best financial advice you would give someone that is, regardless, looking to get into sales, into business, or just period?
I would say a couple things real quick, just some quick fortune cookies to think about. Number 1, action eliminates fear. Go out there, do something, sell something, have an MMA conversation, have a money-making activity conversation, even if it's a research conversation. You want to get into a new industry, a new niche, a new type of prospect, go and talk to 3 of them. Take them out for coffee, beer, drinks, Zoom call. Hey, here's the power strategy for this. I got from my friend Michael Goldberg, who's an amazing networking and referral marketing coach. He calls it asking for advice, insights, and recommendations. So let's say that I wanted to do a lot of sales training with financial advisors, which, by the way, right now I don't, but let's just say I did. My really good friend, Chris, is in this world of financial planning. And I say, Chris, I have a crazy idea. I would love to buy you a beer and sit down and ask for your advice, insights, and recommendations. Now, it's not like, hey, I'm going to pitch you directly, because I'm not going to pitch him directly. It's not about, hey, I have this idea and I want to see if you like it, because, of course, if we're friends, which we are, oh, I love that idea. No, you're great. You're a genius. Everything you do is brilliant. When you say asking for advice, insights, and recommendations, now people say, oh, we're going to have a substantial conversation. David thinks I'm a smart person, so people are honored when they're asked for their advice, their insights, their recommendations, because it makes them feel smart. And then we have a really substantial conversation. You say, well, David, in my experience, the major sales challenges with folks in my business are 1, 2, 3, and I'm sitting there, I'm writing it down, I'm taking notes, right? Here's a piece of advice, right? Here's a recommendation. Have you heard of this magazine called Advisor Today? That's the NAFA National Magazine, National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. Maybe write an article for them. I go to their big annual conference, maybe submit to do a breakout session at the conference. So I'm going to get so much rich information by having these asking for AIR conversations. And again, AIR is the acronym for advice, insights, recommendations, AIR. Do that and you will have a wealth of things to think about, ideas to pursue, people to connect with. Action eliminates fear, and have more asking for air conversations.
Well, and that is a great icing on the cake for today's show. So David, where can capitalizers go to best support, follow, and find you?
So a couple of resources. Obviously, the Do It Selling book is sold wherever fine books are sold, Amazon, etc. Like your book, it's physical book, ebook, audiobook. All the resources and templates and companion tools, all the freebies that go with the book, are online at doitselling.com. And then our podcast, of course, which you were an esteemed guest on our show
was indeed
recently, is called The Selling Show. No big surprise. And that is at thesellingshow.com.
Fantastic. And for those of you capitalizers that are listening in, thank you so much, as always, for supporting the podcast. In the studio today, we're going to have a lot more of that, where that came from. If you are new to the Capitalizer crew, welcome to the family. For the veterans out there, you know the drill. If you have any questions about today's episode, you can either give us a call at 253-214-3050. That's 253-214-3050. I'd be more than happy to take your call and answer. If you're more of an email guy or gal, hit me up, chris@capitalizeyourfinances.com. And lastly, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, fly on out to the studio. Hit us up, capitalizepodcast.com. Shoot us a DM. My team and I look at it every single day. As always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Panayiotou, the Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing. Take care.
You should always seek counsel of the appropriate advisor prior to making any investment decision. All investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. S&P 500 Index is an unmanaged index and includes a representative sample of large-cap U.S. companies in leading industries. An investment may not be made directly in an index. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. Insurance services offered through LPL Financial or its licensed affiliates. California Insurance License Number 0518721. Earnings from a 529 college savings plan can grow tax-deferred and may be withdrawn free of federal taxes when used for qualified education expenses. Non-qualified withdrawals are subject to a 10% penalty tax. Christopher Panayiotou is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor and member FINRA SIPC. The investment professionals are affiliated with LPL Financial and are conducting business using the name Capitalize Your Finances, a separate entity from LPL Financial. David Newman and any other individual or company mentioned in this podcast are not affiliated with Capitalize Your Finances or LPL Financial.